So, Brandon, when's the last time you memorized and recited law for a client or a judge?
14 years ago.
Okay, yeah. When's the last time you said to a client, I want to just spot some issues with you?
Never.
When's the last time you said to a judge or an arbitrator, objection, Your Honor, but before I discuss this, let's discuss the relevance of this evidence?
Never. That's not the way it works.
Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. We have an oldie, although he's not that old, but we have an old former bar taker with us today, Brandon Woodward, who took our Florida course back in 2011. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Welcome, Brandon. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thanks, Jackson.
It's been a long time. We were saying before we started that when you took the course, we didn't do video chats, did we?
No, no.
No, no, it was all telephone calls and emails, and yeah, right.
It,
Am I
it was
remembering
the
that right?
first. It was the first year we got iPads.
The iPad course. Wow.
The first iPad, I believe.
Yeah, that was pretty scary, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember we load up those iPads, we'd send them out, and you'd have them, and you'd be working on the iPads and then talking to us. That was those are crazy times. Well, from time to time in these interviews, I get the really fun opportunity to reconnect with a former student and to kind of find out what life is like on the other side of the bar exam. I know all of you are like, "Oh, I got to take the bar, I got to take the bar," but I think it's helpful to know that there's a reason to take the bar and something happens afterwards. And so Brandon has been really gracious enough to take time out of his daily practice to share with us for a few minutes. And I'm very appreciative of that. I know our audience is going to be too. So why don't we start by you just telling folks a little bit about what your practice area is, what you've been doing since you passed the Florida bar.
Okay. My name is Brandon Woodward. I am a business, corporate, and real estate attorney here in Stuart, Florida. I came to Jackson and Celebration Bar Review, and I had just rolled off being an in-house counsel. As in-house counsel, you didn't have to have the state bar where you lived and you actually practiced. As long as you were admitted somewhere, you were good enough to be in-house counsel. But faced with the prospect of I needed to work and earn a living in the state of Florida where I was in-house counsel, I didn't have a Florida license. As you're aware, Florida is a difficult bar to pass. It's intentionally difficult. I had a new family. I had a house to pay for, new baby. I mean, literally 6-week-old baby, and the pressure was on to pass the Florida bar and stay as a working attorney in Florida, or go back to my home state, which I didn't want to. My home state is Missouri. As when we're recording this, it is very cold in Missouri. It's cold in Missouri a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And moving from my house in Florida, where I love Florida, didn't appeal to me. So I took your course. Happy to say I passed the Florida bar exam. Well, I'm sure we'll have some questions about what that
Yeah.
experience is and how that works. At that point, I knew I didn't want to go back to in-house counsel, and I'm too, I guess, stubborn to be a firm employee. It's not my thing. Not cut out for being employee. So I opened up the law office of Brandon Woodward, PA, headquartered here in Stuart, Florida, and I used all the lessons I learned in 7, 8, many years of in-house counsel and apply it to small and mid-sized businesses. There was always this thought that the smalls and the entrepreneurs and the little businesses didn't have either the capital or the desire to have good quality legal. I set out to prove them wrong. There is a market and there is an appetite for business law, particularly the corporate side of things. That's usually the province of big firms.
Okay.
And I opened the shop with in a spare bedroom. No kidding. I still have my first computer and my first desk still sitting there. Now we have actual real office classes.
Yeah, it looks like you've graduated up. It's a bigger room.
Yeah, it's a bigger room. It's a bigger room. We're in a historic building in downtown Stuart. We have a small staff that keeps me running. I'm still a solo practitioner. I wouldn't have it any other way. I outsource certain things, but I'm able to through affiliates and through networking and referrals and doing a good job for other attorneys. They send me business and corporate, which I think I do a good job and excel at. but litigation or intellectual property, criminal and family, I send that out, and we all work together. And in a small town with a small bar association, that really has been a benefit to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the really exciting parts of the way you've developed your practice is that even in a tougher economic climate for attorneys in a smaller town, that you've managed to find a niche or niche. I'm never sure which word that is.
I have no idea. I don't
Okay,
use that word.
should we be pretentious and say niche? We'll go with
It's
that.
niche. Sure.
And find that, and then really build on it. And you have really, folks, I got to tell you, Brandon's one of the best marketers I have ever seen for an attorney. He's consistent, he's clear, he's helpful. I look forward to reading your newsletters and your emails. They're like, ooh, this guy's good. And finding that sort of place in the market where you can really benefit your clients and build a business. And a lot of times I get questions from people coming into the bar saying, is there any place for me when I pass? I mean, are there going to be jobs or are there other things going on out there? Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I'm sure you hear it as well.
Sure. I think one of the bigger myths or the biggest fallacies out there, graduating, some people go into law and they don't really know what they're doing with their lives in general or their career. Well, they got through college, they're smart people, let's go to law school. But now you've added a JD and now a state bar, and you still may not have a good understanding as to what industry or what area you want to be. And if you go to a big firm, you're going to get pigeonholed into this practice area, and you can spend literally 30 or the next 30 or 40 years doing that, and you may not be happy doing that. I think it's important for all folks coming out of law school to really take a little bit of time and think about what makes them happy. Not the kind of law that makes them happy, but just what in general makes you happy. The money will come. The success will be there. Having your name on the door, sure, fame is good. Recognition in publications is all very, very nice. Having lots of money. But if you're not happy, you're not going to be a successful lawyer. What gives me the most joy is when the new business comes to town, when they don't know anybody, and I'm able to introduce them to a lot of people, get their business off the ground. I see them grow. I help them through a couple of transactions or a couple of problems, good or bad, and then they decide, well, we've made enough money here to retire. Brandon, help us do that too. There's nothing better to do it. You've got to enjoy what you do in the practice of law.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that comes through all of your communication is your enthusiasm for the work that you do and your desire to help your clients. I mean, it's a very giving structure that you have, and I love that. I love that about the way that you are. And as a student, you were somebody who was very open and willing and just had this sort of embracing kind of personality. Versus the people that are always like, yeah, well, show me that. And that wasn't you. And I think that probably carried over into your practice and that people feel that sort of comfort with you. One of the things I wanted to ask you about today, because obviously we've got a lot of people watching and listening to these interviews who are preparing for the bar, and they've never practiced a day in their lives. I mean, they're either law students or maybe they've just never gotten to that point. Maybe they had other careers and now they're coming back to the law. And their entire focus, their entire understanding of this comes from law school. And so sometimes when I talk to them about what it's like to practice law, I talk about things that are different than what they did in law school. And so I'd just like to ask you a series. We're going to play the rapid fire round here. We'll see how we do. Okay. So this is not pre-rehearsed, so we'll see. I reserve the right to edit it if Brandon gives me the wrong answers, but here we go. So Brandon, when is the last time you memorized and recited law for a client or a judge?
14 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. We'll come back to that in a minute. When's the last time you said to a client, I want to just spot some issues with you?
Never.
Ding, 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 ding. When's the last time you said to a judge or an arbitrator, objection, Your Honor, but before I discuss this, let's discuss the relevance of this evidence?
Never. That's not the way it works.
Okay. All right. I could go on, but I think we're making a point here that The practice of law is about doing what, in your view? I mean, I'll let you answer that.
The practice of law is getting to yes, getting to agreement, making the dispute go away.
Perfect. See, this is why this guy is good. So many folks think that the bar exam is how much they can memorize, how much they can recite, how many issues they can spot, how many boilerplate things they can do. But in the practice of law, none of that comes up, does it?
No.
No. And I think that understanding that lawyers don't do those things then makes it more important. Now, as you're a member of the bar and you look at people coming into the bar, what would you think about an attorney who came to you on the other side of a case and they were doing all of those things?
I think I would have a tremendous advantage over them because I think that they've squandered their time learning the number of the rule or the three holdings or the minutia of it all, but they don't grasp the bigger picture. When I negotiate, especially heavy duty or important financial deals, if my client doesn't have a lot of money, I have the threat of bankruptcy in the background. The other side needs to know that. I don't care if you could win all day long. They could defeat me and get their judgment. I know the way to get around their judgment through the bankruptcy process or to scrub off their hard fought judgment. So when we go into a debt negotiation, and I don't have many cards in my hand, it becomes a situation where you've got to know how to negotiate and how to get the deal done. And that's any practice. That's any area of law. Oil and gas, energy, family, criminal. You're there to, and I'm a transactional guy. I see things in black and white. You're there to get the job done and a deal done, hopefully that suits your client.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And when it comes to the writing, your task as an attorney in practice is to represent your client's interest. It's to make arguments, correct?
Correct. We take an oath. We raise our hand. We take an oath in Florida to zealously represent and defend our clients. It's not something we take lightly.
Yeah. And so when's the last time a judge asked you to write a treatise for them?
When I was a law clerk.
Yeah.
when I was working for the judge.
There you go.
First and last time I did that at the Western District Court of Appeals.
Yeah. I had that same experience, and I remember writing a really wonderfully crafted opinion for the judge and came in and gave it to him. And he said, "There's two things wrong with this opinion." I was like, and he said, "Yeah, it's called nomination by the president and confirmation by the Senate." I was like, okay, point taken. Not the thing I'm supposed to be doing. Get that now. But again, I think a lot of bar takers think that their job in the essay writing part of the exam is to just spew out lots of rules, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's not connected, even if it's not important and doesn't have any real world application. In the real world that you live in and practice in every day, that nothing could be further from the truth, right?
That's right. As a sort of corporate generalist, and you're aware, I was in-house counsel, and the in-house counsel job is a lot like being the traffic cop.
Yeah.
I get it in, I got to spot what the issues are and get it off to a subject matter expert. And I'm sure some of the watchers of this interview, either already are or soon will be subject matter experts.
Yeah.
Great. We need those. We need those folks that can literally tell us everything they need to know about a certain narrow area of eminent domain. But guys like me, we need to know one thing: how to get that person on the phone and refer that case to them, so they can get my client's problem solved for them. Yeah. You don't have to be an expert on anything. You can't be an expert on everything.
Cool. Well, let's talk for a minute about what it was like studying for the bar exam. If we can go back in the Wayback Machine. You come out of corporate counsel world and life. You've got a reason for taking the bar, wanting to do it, needing to do it. What was the process like, as you recall it, of being back in that study mode and having to go from being a traffic cop to now having some range of knowledge across a huge number of subjects?
Well, I was taking a bar exam in a state that I didn't study in, and right. So I'm sure many of our viewers now are in that same boat.
Absolutely.
The bar exam does not care that you didn't study in the state of Florida. You've only lived in the state of Florida for a matter of weeks. the bar examiners don't care about any of that. And the fact that you went to the state school for your state, helpful, but again, it's not what wins the day at the bar exam. When I took it, the Florida bar we're speaking of, I was under some pressure to do it. I had all of this knowledge of my home state, which happens to be Missouri, but through the videos, the lectures, the audio, and the books written by you, I learned what I needed to know. And it's like, okay, this is what rule of perpetuities is in Florida, which is not the same as it is somewhere else. Yeah. This is water rights and how they're figured out here.
Homestead.
Oh my, Florida homestead is its own subject, and if you're new to it and you've never had to think about it, it's a little daunting. And that's what a bar prep needs to do. It needs to say, this is the things you're going to be tested on. These are the things you need to know. Just go study it. The rest of it is just kind of a there's not a delicate word for it. They're messing with your mind.
Yeah, they are.
And rather intentionally so.
Yeah. We call it Yankee go home, but I think it applied to people from Missouri too. We're going to make this test so difficult. We're going to make it expensive. We're going to add barriers. And the truth is every state does this. Certainly California is notorious for it. Florida, Texas, Georgia, all difficult states. But even with the uniform bar exam, these are all tough tests. And for you with a brand new family, and a job and having all these changes, I assume convenience of study, having the ability to study when you wanted, was probably a pretty important consideration.
It had to be. And it really drove home the discipline that you need to be a successful bar exam taker. Mm-hmm. I remember when I sat for my bar in Missouri, I went to a course for 3 hours, and then I had literally the rest of the day to do nothing. And that much free time on your hands is not necessarily a good thing. And so I think it's important to be able to study on your own terms. You have this ultimate date out there, where you have to be ready. But your calendar was, okay, work through these chapters, stop. Next day, take a test, review. And then the very regimented day by day, what we're going to do each day, tremendously helpful. It made studying for the bar, I didn't say easy, but it made it manageable. When you first get that list, I remember looking at the list and the written materials going, there are 100 days till the bar. And I got in late, by the way. I think I signed up in February for a July bar, and it was I'd already missed about 3 weeks. So I had to catch up. And but no, today is this, tomorrow is that. Check in with Jackson and keep going. If you work the program as I did, I found success, and I think it had to be that way.
Yeah. And once you pass the bar, and I get this question a lot from people, and you've gone through character and fitness, you've done all the steps. You went right into your own private practice. I mean, you said you set up in your bedroom, you just got started, but you did something that was really interesting to me. You started, I think, very intentionally right from the beginning to expand your footprint, to make an impact around. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the marketing business side of practicing law? Because I really think you are really genius at this.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't invent the expression, but it's one I believe in strongly. I think there's an author that there are finders, minders, and grinders. And certainly the people watching our video might think that they are one of those or all three of those. When you are just starting out, you are all three of those. And you have to find the client, you have to actually do the work, and then you have to manage the rest of it. Your office space and the toner in the copier and the IT and your printer is going to go down. You have to manage all of that, and go find clients. So it is the three balls, juggling all the time. Certainly technology over the last 7 years has, helped out with that. There are certain tricks that I used early on to make myself look bigger. I started with an answering service. If a client is calling down a list of attorneys or has got your card and they get a leave a message after the beep, they are not going to leave a message, and they are not going to call back. By the time you call them back, they've already hired an attorney for their problem. So not missing calls was one of the things I did very early on. So I caught 100% of the calls that came into my office. I really credit that to giving me a nice kickstart forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, and marketing wise, you just absolutely have to pound the pavement. Any practice of law, and I take when I was a prosecutor in Kansas City, Missouri, I'd come out of my courtroom, and there would be some criminal defense attorneys kind of out in the lobby of the courthouse, and they would handle traffic matters on the spot for $100 or whatever the going rate was at the time. It was glamorous? Probably not. Did they walk out of there with $300 or $400 that day, which was a lot of money in 1999, in 2000, 1999? $300 a day, cash. I mean, probably even now, that's not nothing.
Yeah, I know people that'd be happy to do that these days. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got to be able to not only go out and get the work, win the work, find where the work is, and then manage all the firm around you. That's how to manage staff, technology, and actually get the work out the door. And then there's actual application, is actually doing it, filing that motion, going to court, taking that deposition, getting your questions right at deposition, and it doesn't matter what area of the law you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with practice and as you get more comfortable and you know your market and you know your clients, you get better at understanding those things. One of the things that you do, there are a couple of things that I really love in the way you market your firm. One is your YouTube channel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a relatively new thing. I noticed that, I try to stay on top of marketing trends and the internet, and I read a lot of legal blogs online. And I've halfway written one over the years. Video drives eyeballs, and eyeballs turn into business. And I fixed my dishwasher with a part I got from Amazon and a YouTube video. I did not call a repairman for it. YouTube is the way of the future. If your YouTube videos are inside your website, it drives you higher in search engine rankings and things like that. And before you or anyone else dismiss that as voodoo or I'll never have to worry about rankings, you worry about rankings. People look for you on Google. They're looking. They have a problem. If you're there, you're going to get the call. If you're there and you got a bunch of stars next to your name, even better. But to the question of the YouTube channel myself, it's an outgrowth of my newsletter, which I tapered down a little bit. And I was just like, well, what are people asking about? What are the questions I get at cocktail parties? Brandon, what is an S corporation? Why do people why do they call themselves S corporations when it's a misnomer? I shot a video on that, and I tell you, from a marketing standpoint, when somebody asks me the question, that's a good one. What is an assignment of benefits form? I go, I shot a video on this. Why don't you go to my, not in a jerky way, but I have a YouTube channel. It's right there. And rather than me taking minutes to explain it to one person, they go to my channel, they read it. And I'm not giving legal advice. I'm giving very practical how to do things. I shot a whole video on how to nail your 30-second introduction when you have to speak in a crowd.
It's a good one. Yeah, I've seen it's a good one.
Good skill for lawyers.
Yeah.
So the YouTube channel was kind of an outgrowth of my newsletter. More people were looking to see what Brandon was up to. The topic was sometimes kind of boring, but they always wanted to hear Brandon is doing this, Brandon is doing that. And so being me on video worked out. I
think that authenticity, I mean, people sometimes talk about the fact that when I'm doing interviews that it seems like I genuinely enjoy it. Well, I do. I mean, I don't think you can hide who you are in video. I'm sure people do that, but for the YouTube world, I think it's pretty much what you see is what you get, and people are what they are, and it's a great way to attract that. And we'll put a link in our show notes to this so that people can find that YouTube channel. The other thing you've already mentioned, but I love your newsletters. I mean, I just love them because they're practical. I mean, as a business owner, I open it up and I go, oh, dang. I teach that and I didn't know to do that. How do you get your ideas for those?
A lot of it comes from cases that I'm seeing, more and more, questions that I get over and over in the community. Some of it is just what interests me, that day, that week.
Okay.
What did I write recently? I got a mechanical keyboard here at the office. Mechanical keyboards are they're old fashioned, they're heavy, and they make a lot of noise when you type on them. They're not like the slim,
Yeah.
plasticky kind.
Right.
But my accuracy and my speed both went up. So I shared that, and I put that on my bar magazine, which I have a column in.
Mm-hmm.
I put it out on my newsletter, and I just this is so great. Why doesn't everybody know about this? Now you can talk about that, or you can talk about home mortgage interest deductions under the new tax law. Which one of those is going to get more eyeballs?
Yeah, I'm all about the keyboard personally.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't do it. That's awesome. That's great stuff. Well, I suppose I should ask a little bit about the bar exam. You've already talked a little bit about studying, but as you look back on the process, what's your memory? What's your biggest memory of going through the process?
Two or three stand out in my mind.
Okay.
The first one was my frustration, and I reached a block, a hurdle I couldn't get through. Oddly enough, in the realm of property law, and I was probably salty, and I was on the phone with Jackson, and I said, I'm tired of Abel and Baker and Blackacre. I don't care. Could they find different names for them? Why is this so important? This is a hypothetical situation that could never possibly happen in the real world. Some 9-way split with some relatives that don't know about each other, and then a couple of wills that didn't get revoked in time, and then the property has easements across it. Some fantastical farce of something. And I'm chewing Jackson out about this, and Jackson stopped me. And he said, look, when you're on the other side of the bar, you write a letter to the bar examiners, and you tell them exactly how you feel about that question or why this is tested this way. But until you're on that side of the bar, I think you actually said, shut up, play their game, and we're going to get through this. And I said, I think I hung up the phone. And then I came back and said, all right, well, let's do it this way, and away we go. I have to get to a level of frustration, especially if you've got prior experience. If you come from another state, you're a few years out, you've got industry experience, legal or otherwise, whether it's in real estate. Let's say you know a little bit about title insurance. Mm-hmm. So you do understand. You can read a contract. Yeah. It's not so on the bar exam. They're looking for an answer. You give them the answer. They don't care. You're the most brilliant lawyer in the state of Virginia. This is the state of this is Nevada. They don't care.
Yeah.
If they don't care where you came from, they want to hear one answer, and they want to hear it just the way it's presented in the bar review materials. One of the other notable memories I have was the test day itself. Now, in Florida, it's taken at the Tampa Convention Center. Right. And I live on the other side of the state. So the night before, I went over. I stayed with some relatives the night before, got in my car in Bradenton, drove up to the center, and I was calm. And even in the notes for how to take the bar, it was get a good night's sleep before, eat something light, but eat something beforehand. If you take medication, continue taking it. Don't do more, don't do less. Don't try to do anything physically that you don't. And I, of course, obeyed all those directions. I left my study materials, I think, in the car, or maybe I didn't even bring them with me. But I walked in with my couple of pencils, my bottle of water. Maybe you could still take water in at the time. And I was calm, and I was confident. I knew, very different than any other bar I'd ever taken from the state of Missouri, I was like, I got this. I saw people walking around the assembly sort of lobby area. They had their books clutched to their chests like this. Open. They were still reading, and they hadn't slept in a very long time. Jackson, I remember this like it was yesterday. It was 2011, July. And I go, they don't look well. I walked in, I broke my seal on the multi-state, and I put my pencil down an hour and 15 into a 3-hour exam, knowing that I'd answered either everything right or enough right to be satisfactory. Same thing on essay day. I anticipated the questions. We knew that they could only pull from 10 subjects. You can try to play the guessing game, what they asked last time, what they're going to ask this time. I don't recommend that. It doesn't work in the practice of law because whatever you prepared for, they're not going to ask. Don't. Just know it, know enough, and put it down on the page. And I walked out. and you couldn't leave early. I just kind of sat there and finished things up, and I just felt relief. I knew I had beaten that exam. I knew I had passed it when I put my pencil down on the second day. You walk out of the big main room, and they have a cooler of cold beer right there that they sell for $2. Maybe it's more now. And I had $2 in my pocket. I got myself a cold Budweiser. I sat down on one of the steps. I wasn't from one of the schools down here, so I couldn't go to any of the rooms or anything like that. I went out to a bench. I had my beer. I called my family. I don't even know if we had cell phones. Yeah, we had cell phones.
Yeah,
called my family and started my drive home, knowing that I had it in the bag. Results were 6 weeks later, and it was no surprise.
That's awesome. You know, folks, it can be done. And the best part for me is that then you can have a successful career because you pass the bar. See, I sometimes worry, you know, we get so fixated on the bar as though that's the end, but it's really the beginning, isn't it? It's just the start of, and the cool stuff, the fun stuff is what you're doing every day and what you're doing for your clients and the impact that you make in your community. I'm really so thrilled that you would share those experiences. I think it's a great perspective finder for people right now, right? As we're talking, it's right before the exam, so I know people are like, you know, they're locked in. But there is life after the results come out, and that's the best part. So cool. Well, listen, I'm very appreciative, Brandon, that you would spend some time with us today. It's been so much fun for me as a teacher to watch your practice grow, to see your footprint grow. You mentioned the Bar Magazine. You do write a column in the Bar Magazine. Yeah. So, I mean, this guy is everywhere, folks. He is all over the place. Are you doing podcasts anymore?
No, I haven't done podcast. Okay. I do sometimes talk to some of the other at Lawyerist or Above the Law magazine.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll put something up there. It starts as a comment, and then they'll ask me to expand on that or something like that. And none of this extra stuff takes me away from my practice. Nothing really, you know. These are all things you're going to do anyway out there. Keep your ears open. Be a participant, you know, in as much as you can, and work will find you. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, and I think that's true regardless of what jurisdiction you're in. I mean, this is not unique to Florida. In any place you can create a practice and do the stuff you love. And when you do the stuff you love, people find out and they come back to you. Well, listen, thank you again so much. It's been fun talking to you, fun catching up. These are some of my favorite interviews because it's like, ooh, my babies, they grew up. And, you know,
I owe you a great debt. I was stuck there. I had to pass that exam. I looked at other bar prep. I'd done other bar prep before, but there was something about the method, the blending of the physical and the mental, and the overall. You know, you can't argue with the numbers and the success. I did it, and I knew when I walked in with that calm, I got this sort of feeling. Like, I hope all of you watching now have that feeling. Or you do have it that day, it's going to be out. And you know you did okay.
Cool. All right. Well, listen, I can't add anything better than that. Thanks again to Brandon Woodward. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And we'll be back to you again later with another episode in talking and hanging out with successful bar takers. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.